and a number of other things. But they're making progress. And once it's completed here shortly, then first part of the book will go to the proofreaders. And the second and third part are, for the most part, edited. Fourth part, the appendices need work, but so we're working on that. And a number of other things, but that's the main news.
That's great. Are you feeling better from your
Well,
work?
I had
and the COVID, the shot
last week, and then I had a dental surgery on Monday, but I'm recovered from that. I'll have to go back to the dentist tomorrow.
Ooh.
But I'm feeling good. Thank you for your thoughts and all.
Good, thank you.
Your well wishes.
Well, we're going to start our questions with Krishna Das.
Okay.
Dandavat pranams. Good morning, Guru Maharaj.
Good morning.
So my question is, it's kind of similar to a question that I remember asking about a couple months ago, maybe half a year ago, regarding eligibility of one to read or hear about 10th canto pastimes. And I remember your answer is very comprehensive, and I think the conclusion of it kind of went along the lines of, as long as someone who's, advanced enough and has sufficient grounding in the understanding of the Siddhanta is explaining it, like in Krishna book or your aesthetic Vedanta, then it's fine to hear those pastimes. But I was wondering, in the context of singing about things in relation to those pastimes or other things related to that, I remember hearing there's a quote by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur that I was kind of confused about, wherein he says, while still contaminated with anarthas, one should never sing about the Lord's confidential pastimes. And then there was a bit going on about some of the practices of the time by, I guess, certain deviant sects in Gaudiya Vaishnavism that kind of, they would reenact plays of the Leelas and such, and kind of participate in sort of imitationist things in relation to that. And he advised one should not, watch these depictions or, be involved in that in any way. So I was wondering, in relation to that, I know that in different branches of the lineage coming from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, it seems like there's been different applications of that, wherein, for example, I know that Srila Prabhupada and in ISKCON, they sing Jaya Radha Madhava, for example, whereas I think in Srila Sridhar Maharaj's Sangha, they don't do that. Or I remember hearing from some devotees, they're saying that, they thought it was too confidential to sing about that, or something along those lines. And I guess also I remember seeing that in the early days of ISKCON, sometimes there were, there were like small films or movies or plays enacting some of the Leelas. So I guess I was wondering how to reconcile these statements of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur with some of the practices of the subsequent acharyas.
Lost you there for a minute, but I think I understand the question. I think that as it is with many things, you have to understand the spirit behind certain instructions, and often that is lost in translation, if you will. And in which cases, in relation to what you're saying, practices may be engaged in and criticized unduly, based on, as I say, more of a literal understanding of something that someone said, in this case, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and something that may also have been relative to certain time and circumstances, his particular group of disciples, what he was trying to accomplish and emphasize, at that time and so forth. I think that's fairly obvious that with regard to the specifics of your question, that his comments or his instruction in that regard, his advice, his cautions, and so forth, have to appreciate them. You have to look at all of that. You have to really look at the time, the circumstances, what he was trying to accomplish in the immediate, and so on. Given that, well, the dramas about Krishna have been written by Rupa Goswami and others, dramatic performances of these dramas has been a standard fare in Gaudiya Vaishnavism for some time. Lila Kirtan as well. There are books and books and books of Lila Kirtan. It's fairly obvious that such kirtan, for example, descriptions of the Leelas, the 10th canto itself, weren't written or composed only for people who are very advanced. There's no such cautions in the 10th canto, it's in the Bhagavatam itself, about the 10th canto, which is the canto that makes up a better portion of the whole text compared to the length of other cantos, so on. So what were the circumstances? What was the time and so forth? One thing about Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is that he was trying to put, as per the desire of Bhakti Vinod Gaudiya Vaishnavism, on the stage, along with what was accepted as the world's religions. And he had reason to believe that aspects of Gaudiya Vaishnavism lent themselves to be misunderstood, and there was evidence for that even within the Gaudiya lineage itself. And this is particularly with regard to the Madhurya Lila, the romantic Leelas of Krishna. Given that this is the highest ideal, and that romanticism, sexuality, and so forth is the height of sensual experience in this world, and it kind of drives the whole world, so to speak. So the two are very, very similar in appearance, but different as is night and day. And so when you have even practitioners in Gaudiya Vaishnavism singing about the Leelas, preoccupied with the 10th canto, but at the same time their person and character is one that's morally compromised, then you've got a problem, and then you have to perhaps make an emphasis on that will be assure one's progress and will not be misunderstood by the public. And so I think that those kind of advices are in consideration of that in his time. All of these Lila Kirtan, Guna Kirtan, Nam Kirtan, Rupa Kirtan, dramas depicting the Leelas, texts depicting them, the 10th. Even in the center of the 10th canto, this emphasis is made that hearing these pastimes of Rasa Lila is purifying. So you can't deny they have a purifying effect, but at the same time, comparatively, the name has been emphasized, and is emphasized such that, for example, it's said that the form, the qualities, the Leelas of Krishna are all in the name. So to emphasize Nam Kirtan as he did, Lila Kirtan and so forth, I think was a step that he took in consideration of the time and place and circumstances in which he found himself, to protect his disciples from, kind of an intellectual sleight of hand, if you will, thinking that they've made more progress than they have, and being preoccupied with Lila Kirtan and so forth, and then succumbing at the same time, which was fairly common, to a moral lapse, which had cast Gaudiya Vaishnavas in the eyes even of educated and pious Hindus, what to speak of the British, cast it as being, not a serious spiritual path. And so again, he's dealing with his own disciples, and he's dealing with the world also, and how the world would be prone to viewing Gaudiya Vaishnavism and misinterpreting even its eroticism and so forth. So he took a conservative that, and it was useful, and he was very successful in his work. He was critical of his own tradition, and particularly with regard to moral lapses. So he focused on moral stoutness. His emphasis on brahmacharya, for example. This isn't an anga, for example, of bhakti, but he had put an emphasis on this. So a lot of it is relevant to time and circumstance, and without looking at it like that, as I said earlier, I think that those kind of statements can be taken and used in the present to criticize practices that other people are involved in. That let's say, for example, I've written a book about Sakya Rasa. So someone criticized me, you shouldn't be doing that, because of course they would assume you're not, because you're not passing art to the British, which is an assumption on their part that they shouldn't be making about the author. But aside from that, making it available for the public and so on and so forth, therefore he's a deviant from Bhaktisiddhanta. Just as a note, it's interesting, and I bring it up, I wouldn't have otherwise, but in the last 10 days, I've had 2 visitations from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur in my dream. It's at night that I've never had before. And he was very pleased with me. And he asked me to take certain responsibilities. And I said to him, but I'm in my ideal is Sakya Rasa. He said, that doesn't matter, among other things. So I was very startled by that. So I share that with you, just as this comes to mind in relation to what you're asking. So I think those things have to be looked at in terms of time, circumstance, and they may be applicable in present times, in certain circumstances with regard to certain disciples and so forth, and not necessarily to all of them. And let me conclude that with something that maybe underscores the point. Because here he's saying no one should chant Lila Kirtan unless they've attained a certain status. But Bhakti Vinod Thakur gave a couple of Lila Kirtans, one of which is his Kirtan for the Bogarti. It's usually his Kirtan about Krishna's morning meal cooked by Radharani, overseen by Jashoda and Rohini, and there's this one and that one. This is the Lila Kirtan. And Bhaktisiddhanta at the same time instituted it would be sung in all the temples, as a standard during when the deities were taking their Rajbhog. He did it in that way at noon, the deities' main meal. Then while that was taking place, the offering would be made, the devotee would come off after the offering and sing this song. So it's a Lila Kirtan. So it contradicts what he said. So instances of that to look at those and see his instruction. Important. And there is no form, for example, can you hear me? Yeah.
And now, yeah.
There is no form of kirtan that has greater efficacy than
We can't hear you now. You're frozen. Guru Maharaj. Lost them.
hello.
There you are.
Sorry about that. So,
And the greater efficacy.
yeah, and it may be appropriate for many devotees also, as well as the general public. Does that help?
Yes, yeah, that helps a lot. So I guess just to, if I'm understanding this correctly, it's kind of a relative instruction to the time and circumstance, and that it can be adjusted, in that it's not like absolutely one needs to be free of anartas to have any contact with the Lila Kirtan and such.
No, in fact, there's evidence to support that contact with that will free you from anarthas also. Although Nam Kirtan may be more appropriate, have more. Next question.
Would you feel comfortable sharing what those responsibilities were that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur asked you to do?
Not right
No.
now, no.
No, not now. Okay. I just very curious. So I'll wait until the time comes. Sajjan, you want to ask your question?
Yes, thank you, Didi. Dandavats Maharaj. Thank you so much for sharing about those dreams of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, even without details being described, because some years ago I had two dreams about Srila Prabhupada, who I've never met personally, which have remained meaningful to me to this day.
Right.
Yes. So the question which I had for today is about 1 month ago or so, I believe, you just kind of briefly mentioned that Subala from Krishna's pastimes has mystical powers which he uses in the service of his Priyanarmasaka participation with Krishna and Radha's Lila. Do you feel inspired to give a little more detail about Subala's mystical powers?
Well, in some places, they have been described as magical with regard to dramatic performance, for example, ability to engage himself and others in dramatic performance, such that you'll like that because you're a dramatist,
Right.
such that that the people would become, mesmerized and lose sight, the fact of who he was, and enter into the, dramas that he's depicting.
You've become frozen temporarily, Maharaj, once again.
Sorry, I lost you for a minute. You could say that one of the offshoots of that is the famous ability of his and story of his of being able to disguise himself as Radha and fool even Jatila and so on and so forth. So along those lines, even taking the appearing in the form of animals and convincing people that, you know, the animals are really there and so forth. Some things have been written a little outside of our sampradaya, but coming into our sampradaya with that, the ability to deceive, you know, even Radharani's mother-in-law in her own place and for an extended period of time while Radharani's off meeting Krishna is perhaps an example of that.
Mm.
Well,
Yeah, you know, it's interesting about the theatrical performances that you mentioned, because in the Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's presentation of his Bhajan Rahasya, I believe it's in the 6th or 7th period of the day, when it's stated, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur states that Krishna and his family friends, they witness theatrical performances given by the cowherd boys in the evening time, before everyone takes rest and before Krishna, of course, departs, you know, to meet with Radha. So these, do you have some insights about those in regard to that particular aspect of the Bhajan Rahasya? Can you hear me, Maharaj?
Right now I can. Yeah, you were saying Bhakti Vinod, it said, and then lost that, and then you said Radha, Krishna meeting with Radha at night, and I lost that, so wasn't.
No, the theatrical performances, it's said, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that the cowherd boys, they put on some theatrical presentation prior to everyone, the general community taking rest, after which subsequently Krishna leaves to meet with Radha. But about that 6th or 7th portion of the Leela of the day, when the theatrical performances are taking place, I guess in my own case, I must confess, I've sometimes, you know, playfully thought about, you know, perhaps being one of those theatrical performers among the cowherd boys, who gives pleasure to to Krishna and the cowherd community, you know, at that particular time.
Yeah. Didn't hear all of that, but yeah, unfortunately, but in the evening, yeah, there are performances as such, and then Krishna steals off in the night. And yeah, Krishna's friends are very artistically adept. Okay.
Jai Maharaj, thank you.
Another question?
Anuram? Kanuram, are you there? You have to unmute yourself.
Sorry for the delay. I'm driving. Good morning, Guru Maharaj.
Good morning.
My question is about what I was reading in. I started the Jaiva Dharma, and it says in the end of the 2nd chapter, there, I think that Bhakti Vinod is discussing that there are Kanishta Adhikaris, Madhyama Adhikaris, and Uttama Adhikaris, and that the Kanishta is a person who chants occasionally, the Madhyama is a person who chants constantly, and the Uttama inspires others to chant by their presence. And so I was just thinking about the Madhyama Adhikari being tied to this sort of a platform, if you will, of nishta, and also about Lord Chaitanya's Trinada Pi Sunichena, that 3rd verse of Shikshastakam. And I was just, so does it mean I guess the essence of my question is, like, does nishta mean constant chanting, and does it also mean the Madhyama platform?
Well, I think that I don't think that anyone has taken the stages given by Rupa Goswami from Shraddha to Prem, and then looked at them in relation to Kanishta, Madhyam, and Uttam, and written about it in that way. So it's a question that comes up nonetheless repeatedly, is where is the madhya on this scale? Where is the uttam? And of course, there was a famous idea actually given by Puri Maharaj, who was previously Ananta Vasudev, who after the departure of Bhakti Siddhanta became prominent. Unfortunately, his prominence came to an end, and but at any rate, he wrote, continued I think like Sajjana Toshini, or the harmonist it would have been, and he came up with this idea that was good when he said that there is the Kanishta Kanishta, the Madhyam Kanishta, the Uttam Kanishta, and then there's the Kanishta Madhyam, Madhyam Madhyam, Uttam Madhyam, and so on. Kanishta Uttam, Madhyam Uttam, Uttam Uttam, Uttam Uttam, Uttam Uttam, and so forth, which is a way of saying that there's a lot of gray in between here, and as there is even in the stages that are described. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur tried to zero in on those two verses of Rupa Goswami, in which those stages are described or just mentioned, really, go into any explanation of it there in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. But as you know, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur wrote a whole book, Madhurya Kadambini, about the different stages, so he tried to plumb the depths of them. At the same time, he himself in his Bhagavad commentary states that there are 14 stages. So he adds to the, 9 stages, another 5. So give us some kind of some kind of way of telling where we are and so forth, but there's a lot of gray at the same time. So again, the question comes up. It hasn't been answered directly by anyone except, I think, in Bhakti Tattva Vivek, we find a statement from Bhaktivinoda Thakur where he says that the Shuddha Bhakta is the Ruchi Bhakta. The proverbial, pure devotee, Shuddha Bhakta, pure devotee. The stage of Ruchi in Bhakti, in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shikshastakam, which Bhaktivinoda Thakur did like to tie to the different stages from Shraddha to Prema, that Shikshastakam verse. So I was saying, in the stage of Ruchi, where we got cut off, then Nadanam, Najanam, Nasunam, one is freed from material desire, and desire is Bhavata Bhakti or Hoitukita, only Bhakti, and so on. So he describes that devotee as a pure devotee, a Shuddha Bhakta. But still, he doesn't tie it to a particular stage, but you could extrapolate upon it. That said, I think that place the Madhyamadikari in the stage of nishta, and below that, I would characterize everyone as a kanishta, but the different degrees of kanishta. And then again, to say something more about that, Bhaktivinoda Thakur uses the terms kanishta, madhyam, uttam in different ways in different places. In some places, he's just talking about people in general who may not have been initiated in Bengal, who have some faith in bhakti, but they don't know the difference between chanting Kali Nam or Krishna Nam. And then those who know the difference and are chanting here, they're Madhyamadikaris. That could just be the first initiated devotee, in the Western world. So there could be liberal descriptions of Kanishta and conservative ones and so on and so forth. So, but I would say that that the steadiness in chanting that is described in the Shikshastakam verse that you refer to, Trinada Pisuni Chena Tarora Pisahistana Amani Namanadina Kirtaniya Sada Hari. So continually chanting the holy name, and what comes before that is certain characteristics, humility, tolerance, and so forth, described by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. A good case can be made, and I've done it in my commentary on Shikshastakam, for this being tied to the stage of nishta, and given the idea of constant engagement, what allows for the constant engagement? There's no interruption from the major anarthas. They've been removed. And so if you have a definition like you've given, citing Bhaktivinoda Jivadharma, that the Madhyamadikari is constantly chanting, it means fully engaged. No interruptions because of anarthas, distractions, which would then refer to the kanishta. So I think that in the section that you're reading from, that you asked about, Bhaktivinoda Thakur arguably is referring to the stage of nishta when he speaks about the Madhyamadikari. I mean, bhajan is anishta and nishta, so there's a learning curve. So it's going to be up and down, right? So you can say, it's like when you climb the Himalayas. So I said, an example, going to the foothills, you're going up, you're going down, you're going up, you're going down, you're going up, you're going down, you're going up from the larger picture. So the guru thinks everything's all right, but you're going down on the smaller focus, and you think, oh, it's terrible. But even from that, you're learning something. And at a certain point, you get to the Himalayas themselves, and the climb is steep. You get to the top, then you reach the pinnacle, I would say, of nishta. And it's all downhill from there. On the way up, you need a rope for sure, somebody holding you above, because there's a lot of slips along the way. On the way down, then you can coast down. Taste comes, and so you can see the valley of prema ahead. So otherwise, prior to that, the mountain, it's a story that there's a valley of prema on the other side, but meanwhile, you're just looking at the steep climb ahead of you, and it's dangerous. So those are some thoughts on that. Hope that helps.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
Okay.
Omkar.
Namaskar, Maharaj.
Right.
Morning for everyone. Yeah. We came yesterday, 2 days ago.
See you there. That must be your friend.
Yes.
Hello. Welcome to Madhavan.
Thank you.
So we sing the Gaurastakali-lila here. And there's a Sandhya time when Mahaprabhu arrives home and is worshipping a deity. I like to meditate on that one. But is he worshipping Krishna-Balaram? Is that what is in Sachimata's house? Krishna-Balaram deities, or because
in the house of Sachi, then there is the Shalagram.
So her dream, there's a in I think in Madhyakanda 8th chapter of Chaitanya Bhagavat, this dream of Mahaprabhu's mother, where he dreams that Krishna Balaram are fighting.
Yes.
Nityananda and Mahaprabhu.
And in that dream, yes, it's true. In that dream, it's described that she had Krishna and Balaram deities. That's true. I hadn't remembered that. Thank you for reminding me. It's an interesting point. But in descriptions, numerous, that there's descriptions of the household deity being the Shalagram, which is typical amongst the Brahmins. At the same time, there was a deity that was found at the, if I recall correctly, the birthplace of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when it was being constructed and the ground was being dug up for the foundation, a stone deity was found of one Vishnu form, and that deity had been placed on the altar and is thought to be the deity that was in the house of Sachi and Jagannath. So there are different descriptions. Typically, the worship of Radha and Krishna, for example, would be more of something that came after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, after or during Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Lila and his expressing himself as a Vaishnava and so forth, which began at a certain point in Navadvipa in his adolescence. So prior to that, it seemed very unlikely that his parents were worshiping Radha and Krishna. That emphasis of Radha and Krishna's worship comes a little later, as I say, in Gaudiya Vaishnavas, especially with the books of the Goswamis and so forth. The greater balance of devotees prior to that, under the influence of Nityananda, prior to the books of the Goswamis, were worshiping Krishna and Balaram. So that said, given the famous story, I think it must come from Chaitanya Bhagavat. Again, for those listening, Sachi is described as having Krishna and Balaram deities in her home. And then she had a dream. In a dream, Gaur Nityananda came and threw them off the altar and placed themselves on the altar and argued with them and said, "It's our yuga now," and so forth. And so she had a vision in her dream that Gaur and Nityananda were Krishna and Balaram themselves. She had to pinch herself and think, what's going on here? So from that, yes, one can make a good argument, and we have Krishna and Balaram deities there, so no harm in thinking of that particular time and singing the song, thinking of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu coming to the home of Krishna and Balaram. I should say Jiva Goswami also worshipped Krishna and Balaram in his home in his childhood. So that type of worship would have been more popular, more pronounced, more in greater abundance than the worship of Radha and Krishna, which is a little bit of a later development in Gaudiya Vaishnavism. Not too much later, but does that help?
Yeah, that's nice answer. Thank you. So I guess we can meditate sort of like, because the Lila is eternal in a sense. So in a sense, we can meditate Mahaprabhu worshipping Krishna Balaram, or
Yeah, you can pray to have a darshan of Sachi's of Krishna and Balaram at that hour. Yes, thank you for reminding me of that. Very nice point.
Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
I have a question, Guru Maharaj. The name Dauji Gopal, meaning the older brother Balaram and Krishna, what would the name Dauji Nitai mean?
And somebody has that name?
My son and daughter-in-law are having a baby, and that's the name they picked out for their child. And I'm a little, they just saw it in a list of names and they picked it. So,
well, I guess maybe they're planning on having another son.
yeah, that's what that was the only thing I could think of.
So they can call their other son Nitai, and then they can call the first one Dauji Nitai.
I just thought maybe there was something I was missing and all that. So, Oh, we've lost you again. Frozen. Nitai, the older brother. Yeah, I was wondering. Yeah, that's what I was wondering. If it could just be, it could just mean the older brother, Nitai. Yeah, thank you. That's helpful. Well, we lost Guru Maharaj again. Chaitanya
hear me?
Nitai. Okay, you're back.
Sorry, yeah. I was saying that they're probably thinking of Dauji as Balaram, and they want to say Nitai is Balaram, Nitai Balaram. They want to say Nityananda Ram or Ram Nityananda or something like that.
Mm.
Dauji is actually, as far as I know, not a Sanskrit word. It's more of a Hindi word.
Mm. Okay. Lost you again.
Sorry, Dauji is a Hindi word, so it's more of a provincial, local, affectionate name, but it's stuck and it's quite fairly prominent. So yeah, a couple of ways that
Different ways to look at it. Sure.
little different, but
Yeah, different. Yeah, they like to do different. That's, that's their
okay.
nature.
Me too.
There, we have another question, and Chaitanya Nitai said he has a question.
Chaitanya Nitai. Okay.
There we go.
Dhanyavad very
You,
much.
we
Buenos
can't
dias.
hear you. Chaitanya Nitai, you need to, are you on the English channel?
I-
If you're on the English channel, you need to click
Oh.
on the English, on the translator globe, and mute original audio. Otherwise, we won't hear you.
I need to find out how to.
Todavía no.
Yeah, I don't.
Shyam Sundar, can you hear us?
Um,
Can you explain in Spanish to Chaitanya Nitai?
Okay.
Explain in Spanish what he has to do to make his voice come. He has to hit the thing on the bottom.
I can hear him, so if he wants to speak, then I'll speak what he says.
Hello?
Yes,
You can hear me.
I can hear you. I think he's probably still translating.
Can you hear me?
Okay.
Can you hear me? Hello? Hello, hello. Hello, hello.
Shyam, we still can't hear him. Any?
Hello,
I
hello.
don't hear you either.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
I can hear him. Thank you very much.
Okay,
Dhanyavad
what is-
pranam.
You're on
Very
the
much.
phone.
Calling from Peru.
Peru,
I have a,
Peru.
yeah, I have a question. I have listened to your lectures,
Okay.
and I have a question for many weeks about Lord Narasimhadeva,
Mhm.
because it's so important, Lord Narasimhadeva in our sampradaya, but I don't find like the relationship between Vrindavan, Lila, and why it's so important Lord Narasimhadeva being the Lord of Vaikuntha in our sampradaya. Like, seems like it's very, very special. I don't know if this is coming from Srila Prabhupada only, or is the whole lineage give this importance to Lord Narasimhadeva.
Mhm. Well, if you study the Bhagavatam, you'll see the Prahlad Charita, the chapters about the character of Prahlad. You'll find that he was a devotee, Devata, his deity. And given the circumstances that Prahlad found himself in, Krishna the circumstance, it's long Leela, and the Bhagavatam dedicates 10 chapters to this Leela. Where the gatekeepers of Vaikuntha are cursed by the Kumaras, and that's the and they had to come to earth and so forth. And the Nrsinga-lila comes out of that. So it's a very important lila in the Bhagavatam. Out of all of the leelas, there's no lila avatar who has given more attention than Nrsinga. Of course, Krishna is given the most attention as the avatari, but even there's even a description of Ramacandra, which is a very human-like lila, very briefly comparatively. So Nrsinga is given a lot of attention in the Bhagavatam, as is Prahlad. And again, as I say, Prahlad was a devotee of Krishna. So Krishna appeared to him as Narasimhadeva. And that doesn't mean that that Prahlad had identification with the Braja-lila. So Krishna is also a name of God in Vaikuntha as well. Narayana is also known as Krishna, but he was a devotee of the deity of Krishna. And arguably we could say he worshipped in Vaidhi Bhakti, although he has, according to Jiva Goswami and Bhakti Sandarbha, he has rag at the same time. So there's a spectrum of rag, from Braj being the full manifestation of love and spontaneously and in intimacy, but it extends also beyond Braj in kind of lesser forms, you might say. So Prahlad is characterized by Jiva Goswami as a rag bhakta in Vaikuntha, in terms of the spontaneous nature of his devotion, which was described in the Bhagavatam, his devotion to Krishna being like the pole star, or like an astrological influence that can't be moved. So fixed, if you will, was his devotion. So that said, when we come to Gaur Lila, which is non-different from Krishna Lila, which is really an extension of the Krishna Lila. If we look deeply into Krishna Lila, in the Rasa Lila, we find this is the genesis of Gaur Lila. Gaur Lila comes out of that. The limitations of Krishna Lila are experienced by Krishna in the Rasa Lila, and to make up for them, so to speak, the Gaur Lila is expanded. And in Gaur Lila, Nrsinga plays a prominent role. There he is found to be the protector of the Sankirtan. The mridanga is his favorite drum, favorite instrument, and so forth. It's said that after dealing with Hiranyakasipu, he came to the Ganges to wash his hands and resided in Navadvipa, in Godrum Dweep, which is the island of Kirtan, at Nrsinga-poli. And he comes up again and again. The way the prayers that Prabhupada gave us to chant about Nrsingadeva are prayers that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself uttered in Jagannath Puri in praise of the deity of Narasimhadeva. So we find Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also worshiping him. So he plays a prominent role in Gaur Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And a deity was established there, and the Seva Puja of the deity was conducted. The early morning pre-dawn artik, Mangal artik, he used to look from his veranda, and he saw like a storm of wind would seem to be entering into the temple every morning, just prior to Mangal artik, and then it would stop. And he had a vision that, oh, this is Nrsinga avatar coming. The deity of Srivas Thakur in his home was Narasimhadeva, and that is the deity also in the home of Nanda Maharaj in Braj, worshipped by Madhu Mangal, who's adopted into their family and is the Brahmin priest there. So he's prominent also in the Braj Lila in this way. So he's very much intertwined with our path. In other words, he has a prominent role in Gaur Lila. he has a prominent role in Krishna-Lila as the deity in the house of Nanda Maharaj. Going to the Artik at night in Nanda Maharaj's house. And there's a place for worshiping him in Gaur Lila as the protector of Nam Sankirtan and so on and so forth. There's a long history of this. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur has written some beautiful prayers to Narasimhadev in the spirit of Rag Bhakti and the worship of Radha and Krishna. Those are prayers worth learning. I believe they might be found in his Navadvipa-lila. He conceived of worshiping Narasimhadev in pursuit of the intimate service of Radha and Krishna in Vrindavan. So he has a role there. I mean, otherwise, yes, there's a Shinga deity in, face of Narayan, if you will. Can you hear me? Yes. In Vaikuntha.
Yes.
And I'll conclude with this. Of course, it's Gopal Bhatta Goswami had 12 shalagrams that he worshipped. And on the Shringa Chaturdasi, the celebration of the appearance day of Narasingha Avatar, Gopal Bhatta was contemplating the good fortune of Prahlad, that his deity appeared to him out of stone. What was the devotion of Prahlad? And he was thinking like this, Gopal Bhatta, and he went to sleep at night. When he woke up in the morning, he found that one of the shalagrams out of the stone shalagram had manifest the deity of Radharaman. So the deity appeared out of stone for him, as Krishna did for Nrsimhadev. But that, of course, he appeared as Krishna out of the stone, and that's the deity worshipped in the temple in Vrindavan, the Radharaman temple. Interestingly, it's said that the 11 other Shilas are still worshipped today as 11 of the 12 Gopals, the Dwadasa Gopals, in the Radharaman temple. Dwadasa Gopals, Ki Jai, Radharaman Ki Jai, Narasimha Avatar Ki Jai. Does that help? Chaitanya Nitai, does that?
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay. It's a rich topic. I've given many lectures on this. It's very, very good topic.
Thank you very much. It was so.
Okay.
So,
All right. So
yeah, I was just going to say, if we had time for one more question, Brigu has a question.
Dandavat Guru Maharaj. This is a follow-up question to the Nrsimhadev question that we just had. In Laghu Bhagavatamrta, Rupa Goswami singles out Nrsimhadev, Ramacandra, and Krishna as full manifestations of the Lord. I forget the exact term that he uses.
But he says they have sad-aisvarya.
Yes.
6 opulences. Right.
Does he single these 3 out also because they have, because this is something I just heard, I wanted to check if this is correct, that they're also singled out because they have parsadas, they have associates in a different way than, let's say, Varaha or Matsya and so on.
I haven't heard that before, but it's true. At least in the form of Prahlad, right? But it's not that nobody worshipped Matsya or Kurma at the same time, but I'd like to hear that, the development of that argument, whoever's put it forward, certainly not mentioned by Rupa Goswami and Laghu Bhagavatamrta, but maybe something, to it that it could be give further to support to why he's picked those out, but he has picked them out because they have 6 opulences, and they are fullest manifestations, therefore, of Bhagavan. But again, I haven't heard that argument. And as I started to think about it, well, yes, he has Prahlad, but who else? And every avatar has somebody who worships them, right? So the best I can do on that. Try to find out more from whoever makes that argument. It's what is
I will.
their supporting evidence would be nice to hear. Okay. Thank you for the
Thank you.
opportunity for some avatar kata, both of you, and nice to be with all of you. So hopefully next week, next Sunday morning, I'll be available. I'll be at a different location because Monday morning I'll be departing from Bhagavan. We're going to have a festival there for about a month. So try to come if you can. I see they're already celebrating there in Madhavan. Omkar leading the way. Okay.
Jai Guru Maharaj, thank you so much.
Haribol.
Haribol. Okay, if the devotees stay on, we'll just go over quickly the topic of 8 classes for this coming week. So on Monday we have Mohini Dasi is giving her class on exploring the mercy of Sri Nityananda through song and Shastra. And on Tuesday, we have Jaiva Dharma, the true purpose of human life by Guru Nishta. And on Wednesdays, we have Krishna Sandarbha, Dulal Chandra. And on Thursday, the beauty and messiness of a sadhaka's journey. I'll be hosting that. And this week we have Gopal Nandini will be, the devotee will be interviewing. Friday, we have the Chatra Shloki of the Srimad Bhagavatam of Atulananda Swami. And Saturday, the Shelter Shri Guru, the key to the temple of Bhakti. And that's Ashram Maharaj's class. And then on Sunday, back here with questions and answers. Also on Thursdays at 8 a.m. Eastern, I've got Eastern Daylight Savings Time, so that's not sure. That's correct. We're not in that time. Well, if it is that time, then it would be later. That's Ishtagosti questions and answers with Swami Padmanabha. And I think he might still be on. If he's on the call, maybe he can clarify the time that class is now that we're no longer in daylight savings time. Maharaj, are you still on the call? Okay. I'm thinking it might be later now. No, so it would be 9 a.m. or 7 a.m. going backwards. Oh, I'm not good at this. So anyway, just check on the Tavi Vivek or talk on the Sri Chaitanya Sangha website for the time for that. Or on Padmanabha Swami's site, you can probably find it too. All right, well, thank you so much, devotees. Okay, thank you so much, and we'll see everybody soon.
Hare Krishna. Achala City, I wanted to congratulate you that you're going to be grandma.
Yeah, I get that's like quite a interesting development. So
how far is it developed now? I mean, when is the baby?
Like 5 months. So in April they're expecting. So
oh really? Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. They kept it a secret for a while, like a lot of young people do these days, afraid to, because of miscarriages and things. But yes, it's definitely exciting. Little Vaishnavi no, it's Vaishnav. Not even.
Oh, they already know.
They already know. They found out, and that's why they gave the name. And so I was like, sure, exactly what that, how to think about that name. So that was good. There's 3 different ways we can think about the name. Jai. Wow. Well, thank you so much to the lovely devotees, and we'll see everybody soon.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.